What's up, everyone? We are back for the 12th episode of Kofe Talk, a podcast designed to connect you to individuals in the sports community while we indulge in a cup of coffee. I'm fired up for our next guest. He is a commercial and editorial sports photographer, truly one of the best in the business. I'm honored because this upcoming week, he is going to be shooting my wedding. So, extremely excited about that. Let's give my guy, Bryce France, a warm welcoming. What's going on, man?
Good. How are you? That was a great introduction there.
I'm good. I've had some practice now, so I'm slowly getting better at that.
That's cool. That's the 12th episode because that's my number, like my favorite number there.
I'll say I planned that.
Oh, okay. Good job.
So what's going on? What you been up to, and how you been?
Yeah. So I've been slowly getting back to shooting. For those who don't know me or aren't up to date with what I do in my life, my wife and I just had a kid about a month ago. It'll be a month ago Sunday. So we've been more so worried about that and taking care of him, and but we're both slowly trying to get back to work. So that's what I've been up to basically.
Yeah. How has that been so far?
Slowly but surely happening. Today was probably one of the first days actually back, kind of shooting. So it felt good. A different perspective actually kind of coming out of having a kid makes you, it really it makes me want to push myself even more. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So we'll kind of jump into it here and want to hear a little bit more about how your career started. When did you decide you wanted to work in sports, and did you always know that you wanted to go and be a photographer?
I mean, looking back, growing up, I can see my earliest memory of taking pictures was when my stepmom or my dad and my stepmom eloped in Tennessee. We didn't actually know they were eloping. We thought we were just on vacation. But I was probably like 6 or 7, and my dad gave me 2 disposable cameras to shoot the ceremony in the little chapel.
Okay.
And I remember that feeling. Like, I don't really remember many things from back then, but that's like one of the clearest memories I have is like how fun and excited I was getting those 2 cameras. And I ran through both of those disposable cameras before they got to the little kiss at the end. So I'll make sure that I get y'all next weekend. But in regards to sports, I mean, see, it's so I went to school at a small school in South Georgia, Valdosta State, and I was a fine arts major, and I knew because my family was pretty artistic growing up. So I mean I liked to dabble in like drawing and painting and stuff, and photography wasn't necessarily on my radar as much.
Okay.
But it was still, I still had fun doing it at the time. But I think it was my junior year is when it really clicked that that's what I wanted to do.
And this was junior year of high school?
College.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really clicked. It was a project that really just kind of pushed me to be very creative, and I enjoyed that feeling so much. And that's what I kind of try to have that feeling every time I shoot now. Is just something I want to make something epic. That was the kind of thing I would say back then was I just wanted to make an epic image.
Yeah.
But coming out of college, I didn't think I was going to do sports. I was thinking maybe more fashion, because that was a lot of my work was more, it was like moody, and I liked really dramatic lighting. But I started assisting a local photographer. He works for Sports Illustrated all the time. His name's Kevin Miles, who is been a really big influence in my career. He took me under his wing. Would drive up from Valdosta, which is like 3.5 hours from Atlanta, and would go to some college football games with him, carrying his gear. Got to go to a few SEC championships, a national championship. I've been to 2 Super Bowls, not assisting him particularly, but everybody's been Sports Illustrated that I've assisted. So through him, got to learn a lot and meet a lot of really cool people that became, some mentors as well. But we grew close enough where he was actually at my wedding as one of my,
Really?
yeah, he was, I couldn't see him not being in my wedding,
Yeah.
because he just that influential to my career and my life. But yeah, we're really close now still, and he's now the team photographer at the Braves, and whenever he needs me, I help him out with that stuff. So
You got tied up in, I guess you were assisting him and
mhm.
doing those things. Before that, like what was like that teller for you that this was something that you should really get into? Just that junior class that you took, or
So it was a project in my junior year that really pushed me to think creatively.
yeah.
I was thinking of, like, my little phrase was, I just need it to be epic. Like, I was thinking of epic imagery every time I had a project after that. So, um, but coming out of that, I thought I was going to do fashion. Like,
Okay.
I was assisting him here and there. I wasn't thinking that I was going to do sports. I mean, I grew up playing sports, so I was very familiar with it all. But
Mhm.
I really liked fashion because I really liked the storytelling and the lighting and the direction of it all. Excuse me. Um, but through assisting him, getting to meet a lot of people again, um, I took that opportunity to kind of like jump into sports because it was just something I was, again, really familiar with. I knew how to direct it. I knew how to look for it after, again, assisting some of the best sports photographers in the world, getting to kind of see how they see and talk to them and bounce ideas off of them um, for a couple of years. So
What did assisting these guys consist of, and what was your? I know once you got your foot in the door, I guess it was probably
yeah,
easier to access some of these guys and get started. But what was that first stepping stone you kind of took, and were there rejections along the way as you were kind of getting started there, and what does that look like?
it was a lot of assisting. I wasn't really trying to. So when I moved to Atlanta, I was assuming that I was going to get a restaurant job and like assistant shit on the side.
Yeah.
But all the restaurants here needed full-time people, and I couldn't do it because, Kevin could hit me up last minute and say, hey, I need you at a Georgia game, in 2 days. So I couldn't do that. So luckily I got to stay with some family and save some money. Um, but yeah, I just really, it was consisted of just carrying gear. Um, these guys will have, 5 or 6 bodies on them during a
Yeah.
game. So you're carrying like just about all of them. Um, and I remember the Super Bowl. I was assisting John McDonough, who's a longtime Sports Illustrated guy, and I was carrying, I think, 4 or 5 bodies on me while he ran around and got the post game celebration. 2 bodies with a 400 and it was like a 600, and then 2 other bodies around my neck, and then my camera because I wanted to try to sneak
Get
in a few
whatever you
shots
can
here and there.
in between.
Yeah. But no, they were really pivotal, like helping me understand that industry more,
Yeah.
and getting close and kind of just being. I was very fortunate to kind of get close to all that action early on.
Early on, I actually started off as a graphic designer in my career, and I finally got my hands on a camera. And I love hearing you talk about like this epic moment and
Mhm.
how you can go and capture it. I think that it is so incredible what cameras actually do. And I don't think it's like talked enough about because I think people take it for granted that, like, your cell phones have cameras, and I have a camera
Mhm.
that fits in my pocket, and it's, super accessible and it's easy to use and all these different things. But I was sitting there having a conversation the other day with my cousin who just got her first camera. And I was like, think about what this tool does.
Mhm.
I mean, it is freezing moments in time. Obviously, there's a lot more science to it, but using glass and rays of light. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Yeah.
who is the guy that was like, this is gonna work and freeze moments in
he
time?
was he was probably tired of painting scenes all the time. It's like, can we just wrap this up in a quicker way? I don't want to spend 2 months painting the scene.
It's like it probably makes sense if I could just grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. I studied art history, and college, and I can't remember exactly who it was. I know it was like a French guy, but it was the first photograph that was ever taken. Yeah.
How cool is it that you get to document and like these pictures that you're taking, at the Super Bowl or whatever you're doing, like these are pictures that our kids are going to eventually end up looking at, and I think it's just like such a cool moment in history and just like such a unique tool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes photography all that more important is we are the people that are documenting, moments in time that people can't ever go to or, ever go back to. It's a very important job when it comes to, especially some big events like Super Bowls, or, I mean, if you're covering like over the last summer, like all the protests, like people
Yep.
covering that, and that's history. Like we have documentation now, and during a pandemic, so you see a lot of people protesting with masks on. So super, super unique time, and really thankful for all the people who went out and were able to do that.
The whole time I was thinking, I was like, holy cow, this is going to be in my kid's history book. That's the only thing that I could think about is like, they are going to see this moment in time and be like, holy cow, there was a pandemic going on and the protests were going on. And we're living through these moments. And just, the same way that we were in middle school and high school and college, reading through and seeing this work, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's your work, man. Like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I'm unfortunate. I mean, I didn't really play a role in like anything outside of sports at the time because, I mean, we just kind of locked ourselves away and, didn't really go out much during the pandemic. But, my wife was always trying to push me to go to shoot the protests and stuff like that. But I mean, I at that time felt like that wasn't, I felt like there were, people who could do a better job at
Yeah.
capturing that at the time, and they were out there doing it, and they did an amazing job. And it just wasn't real. I just didn't feel like it was my place to go out and shoot things like that. But I mean, when it comes to sports, I'd I'd be happy to document like a really nice season, or a certain athletes or something like that.
Once you decided that this was the career that you wanted to pursue, you were stepping in and you were, an assistant at the time. I'm assuming you had some camera equipment of your own, but like camera equipment's just like expensive, right? I think we know it's extremely expensive. It's an investment. How did you kind of get your foot in the door and get started and starting to invest in this equipment and turn it around into a business?
My first step in was probably, was it 2018 or 19? Might have been, I think it was 18, shooting media day portraits for Atlanta United.
Okay.
Got to have a relationship with Kara Durant, who's the lead photographer. Well, she was over both at the time, but she reached out and asked me to come shoot some portraits because she had seen some of the stuff I had done in the past. And it was a good time. It was a very good learning experience too, because it's not like it's just you two. You have people, over your shoulder kind of seeing how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you are working with very, very limited time constraints to, I think we had, both times I did it, we had 5 minutes to do 2 lighting setups with each
Yeah.
player. And that's like 20 something players. And we shot it over 3 days. So definitely big learning experience for me too. But I mean, equipment wise, I've had Canon systems since, college. I think I'm shooting Sony now, which it's just to help me, build up that commercial quality.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I was a one body, one lens type of person for the longest time. I had a Mark III, Canon 5D Mark III for a while, and I would just shoot on a 35-1.4 the whole time. I was doing a lot of lifestyle portrait stuff.
Yeah.
That's all I needed. Anything I needed outside of that for any kind of job or anything like that, I rented, which I recommend anybody doing this stuff. I mean, camera gear gets expensive.
Yeah.
If you need it, rent it. Don't, unless you feel like you're gonna, use it outside of work. Don't buy it.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason to own. I feel like there's no reason to own like a 400 or anything like that, unless you are shooting constantly like that. But yeah, just save your money.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, lenses are. I mean, they get up to, uber expensive. I mean, the 70 to
Buy
200.
used. I don't think I ever really bought anything brand new. I think I have one lens now that I think I bought brand new, but other than that, everything I bought used through
Yeah,
Amazon or B&H or KEH or something like that.
yeah, and the equipment has pretty good like longevity on it. It works forever. Glass is glass, right? It
Mhm.
it can only really change so much, and
Yep.
really the what changes is more the bodies. If I'm Am I accurate in that? Is
Yeah.
just sensors, and then those things get better. So
Yep.
you get in and you're working and you build this business that you now have, and maybe you consider yourself more of a freelancer or a business owner, or however you kind of define that. But you're no longer just behind the camera. You're now overseeing your brand and doing customer service, and you're scaling and financials and all these different aspects of business. uh, Tell me, were there learning curves with going into this, and how did you kind of attack some of those different areas or fill gaps, or what was that like?
Whew, man. That side is something that, I mean, to this day, I'm still trying to get a grasp on because, like in college, I was a fine arts major, so we had no business courses or business classes in that.
Yeah.
So anything I learned was mainly through all the people I assisted. I mean, I always asked them questions whenever I was assisting them. I made sure I had like some questions kind of already going in my head before I even gotten like a job with them. Um, but definitely, I mean, as of recently, I've definitely been doubling down on it more.
Yeah.
Um, man, just use social as much as you can. It's a good, I would say free, but it's a very cost effective way to market yourself on
Yep.
social. And always be trying to be in communities and build communities, because that's a really good way of getting your name around. Um, but other than, I mean, network, I mean, huge thing is to network. Yeah, when I was assisting, I wasn't necessarily trying to like take work or anything like that, but I was just, you know, being nice and talking with some of the people that Kevin was working with, or because you never know down the line, if Kevin can't shoot at something, or Kevin were to move, you
Right.
know, your name will be in the back of their head,
For sure.
um, for a potential job. But we're all, again, Atlanta's a very small. It's everybody knows each other here.
For sure.
So I mean, word can get around quickly about who you are. So I mean, again, I hate using the word professional because it just seems like there's no life in it, but just being nice, like being a good person, can go
Yeah.
a long way. Because a lot of people have ruined their careers being not so nice people.
Yeah, I feel like anytime you're building a relationship, people remember like how you make them feel, not necessarily
Yeah.
what you say and what you
Hmm.
do. It's really, the presence that you bring along with that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so and you talk a little bit about the networking and building, and marketing yourself within social media. Just to get a little bit granular with it, like what have you done, and what has worked and what hasn't worked with sharing your work?
Yeah. I wouldn't say there's a perfect formula for it all. Um, I mean, trying to share consistently, um, you know, it being posting once a day, 3 times a week. Um, I remember at one point I was shooting so much I was posting twice a day, which is probably not a good idea. But social media, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and social media is a great place to share your work,
Yeah.
but it's social media. It's meant to be a social platform. So don't just post work and accumulate all the likes and love. Use it to engage with people.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I would DM as many people as possible, to either show some love on their work, or maybe build a relationship when it comes to potentially shooting for their brand, or um, I mean, with athletes, sometimes it's pretty interesting. You can literally DM them and they'll DM me back. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised at which ones um, will do that. Some very surprised, but yeah, just be social on social media. Don't worry about like all the likes and comments.
Yeah. Don't think you're just going to post a, picture, post a piece of content or graphic or whatever that you make, and people aren't just going to engage to engage. I mean, it takes, building a strong network and a good audience and those things to be able to really use the platform how you want to use it and for what it's made for.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, this might kind of tie into like the whole topic of like people trying to use you for like use your work and offer exposure. That's I might as well talk about it now because it's
Yeah,
my
yeah, let's
basketball
jump into
days.
that. That's the hot topic.
Right. But yeah, you know how people will offer you like a hat or something when you're doing some work for them or something like that. I've I've personally been tagged in, you know, multiple athletes accounts with
Mhm.
millions of followers, and I don't think any work's ever come from that. Um, and I'm sure it's the same way with a brand too.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you get followers, but you get fans that don't offer you work.
Right.
They're just fans. Like
Right.
I shot for, or when I shot MLB 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, like I was just getting a bunch of Braves fans following me,
Okay.
which was cool. And got to talk to a few of them, but like there's no work that comes from that. Um, the real, get paid even if it's for social.
Yep.
So, uh, tagging is not a form of payment.
It's also funny how you talk about, like, you post some Braves work and that's kind of what the fans end up latching onto. I have a similar experience with like Georgia Tech and
Mm-hmm.
Temple, where kind of like I built my equity within like that space. And I could definitely tell when I go and I post something more on like the Georgia Tech side,
Yeah,
those
you get more
fans and
engagement.
those players and the people that I
Yeah.
have, close knit relationships with,
Yep.
those are the dudes that are engaging with the content. And then, I go post, maybe something from USC and it's a different fan base or different audience or different group of people that are engaging.
Right. Right. I mean, you look at some amazing photographers on social media that they'll get like, sometimes not even 100 likes on their photos, but they get, the best jobs. And
Yeah.
it's because it's not how many people are following, but who's following them.
Right.
So definitely if you're somebody who wants to be more like freelance commercial, it's more so about getting those like creative directors or art directors um, to follow you or notice you.
Yeah.
Those are the follows and likes that you need, big
Yeah.
time.
When do you think it's okay to go and do free work, or say an athlete comes to you and maybe it's a friend, maybe it's not a friend? I'll say that I've been in situations working for like the Georgia Tech football team or Temple or USC where I have players hit me up and they're like, hey man, would love to go out and shoot. And like, I'll just be honest with you, from like my standpoint and my seat as like a brand manager of Georgia Tech, it's not like I can be like,
Mm.
yeah, bro, I'm gonna, throw me X amount of dollars,
Right.
money
Right.
that you probably don't have
Mm-hmm.
quite yet. But how have you kind of managed that through your career? Maybe it hasn't been that same thing, but you've clearly been asked at some point.
I mean, sometimes it depends on who it is, but I've at this point in my life, especially with having a kid now,
Yeah,
like I just can't do work for free. Like
yeah,
no matter if it's Tom Brady reaching out or anybody, it just you can't. No, like you have to understand what I have to do, or what I have to support here at home.
yeah,
I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, some of them are, straight out of college, don't have that kind of, situation yet.
yeah,
So I don't expect them to completely understand that. But, I mean, there are, like I said, a few guys that I'm just kind of like, sure, whatever. Like I'll come out and shoot a like your training or something like that here and there. But if it becomes too much, we've got to talk money because you're taking too much of my time to do this,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you're not going to go out and throw footballs for free, or you're not going to go out and
Right.
catch footballs for free.
Yeah.
That's what ends up being your job.
Right. Well, I think too, and it's funny that you mentioned the whole, you being associated with the college that a lot of these guys reach out to you about, like the players that go to that college that you work for.
Yep.
Um, I was talking to somebody about this not too long ago, and this person was like, yeah, like you got to think about it. Like most of these guys coming out of college, going to the pros, are so used to being in a position at their university where they could just reach out to somebody either on staff or a buddy to get some free photos. So why isn't it any different when you go to the pros? And they don't really have an aesthetic, they don't have a mindset to, you know, um, they just want cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can rationalize in their head what's cool, but um, I guess what the point I'm trying to get at is like they're just so used to getting free stuff that sometimes you have to kind of understand where they come from and maybe educate them on why it is that you need to charge them.
And I think everybody understands too. And in the players that I've talked to and kind of seen them move, up into the league, I think there is a little bit of an understanding when you talk about it in the way that you brought it up. Is like, man, I got to feed my family too. Like this is everybody can relate to that, right? Like this is my job, and though it's also a passion of mine, still got to make sure that I put dinner on the table at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to think of some people that I've worked with that have families. I think a lot of those people are definitely more understanding when it comes to like, like if I come out, we got to start working on some sort of payment system because, I like this whole situation's new to me. So like time is very, very valuable with me.
For sure. I've talked to creatives that are either in the college football space and they go out and they want to freelance or they want to do kind of like their own thing. Where did you kind of either get the knowledge to do that? Was that something that just kind of came natural for you? And where did you kind of pinpoint what your value was? Was it based on jobs? I know that's kind of like it depends on the person. So I'm interested in kind of how you figure out where that value sits.
This whole value-based pricing thing is kind of actually new to me.
Okay.
I at first probably for a while had it like more of like a fixed price system or used retainers.
Okay.
But I've been learning more and more about value-based pricing. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you use what I provide you, how much value does that bring to you?
Right.
Like having conversations, asking the right questions really helps you um put yourself in a really good position when it comes to shooting for, it could be an athlete, it could be a small company, big brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like understanding all that stuff in the back end can really help you negotiate a very fair enough price
Yeah.
for both you and the client.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that helps you bring more value in your position as well, not just being a photographer, but like what kind of issues or what piece of their brand or visuals are you fixing? Because they're coming to you for a reason. They're not able to do it internally. They're not able, whatever that is. Um, and it's kind of figuring out what pockets that you're fixing and what you're doing. So some fun questions to kind of wrap us up. What has been either the most fun event or shoot that you have been on thus far in your career, and why?
Man, I have to say, I mean, I've been on a lot of fun shoots. I can't say that I've really had like a bad shoot. I mean, I really do like I really miss the college football environment.
Okay.
Um, like I think the last time was a Georgia Tech game that I shot for Tech,
Yep.
which was which was really nice. I don't know, it's just college football atmosphere is really different. Like I've been to Super Bowls and I feel like it, college football still can't compete on that level of like just how the energy is in the stadium. So I mean, I remember I guess I have to point back to my first game assisting Kevin, which was a late afternoon evening game. Oh man, now I have two games. It was Georgia Mississippi State. My first college football game. So I've never been to a college football game before that too. So I'm on the field and you're just the energy.
100,000 fans or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is. It's a
The
lot.
lights in the fourth quarter, like it's really, really cool. And then got to go to the Iron Bowl, I think that same year in Auburn. And that was when I think Auburn upset Alabama and the fans rushed the field. And that was really interesting, really cool to see in person. But yeah, those are two things that really stand out to me.
That's awesome. And then my last question is, who would you like to see on an episode of Coffee Talk?
Do you prefer younger creatives or do you want somebody who is a little more seasoned?
I'm open to either or.
Ooh, I bet I could manage to get Kevin with you on a episode. I think he's given me tons and tons of insight over my career, and I think he could do the same.
Yeah.
He's really, and he's a great person. He could shoot the shit with you really easy.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. I think the best thing that I've enjoyed over the course of building out this podcast is like the networking that it's really opened up. And I say that in maybe networking isn't the best word to use because
I mean, but I see what you're saying because you don't want to say you're building this like nice relationship with somebody, but it's also a business related networking situation. It's totally fine to say that it is because the other person's probably thinking the same thing too. It's like, oh, this is a nice person. I can talk to them about all this stuff, but at the same time, like on the back end, like what do they do? Like how maybe there's something that they could help me out with. And I mean, it can go both ways.
It's been extremely fascinating to like hear everybody's story, how they got started, like what they're doing, and everybody has kind of like their own little like niche and focus, and athlete stories get told all the time, right? And I was kind of sitting there and I was like, man, like some of the dudes that I work with, they got some like nutty stories as well. I mean, they've been through it, and it's not easy, working in sports and getting started. But I've been able to like build and cultivate these relationships. I was on with Jeff Honnell from Auburn on my last podcast, and we talked for 2 hours. So the podcast ended up being an hour, and then we talked for an hour after that. And it's just like, you get to hear, either similar stories or how you've dealt with different situations in your career. And it's been really, really cool to kind of like sit and break down some of these, these different career paths. And man, I really, really appreciate you carving out the time, and really, really excited because this week you're gonna be in and shoot. So I know Jen is extremely excited, and we are. You did a phenomenal job on the engagement shoot that we had, and
thank you.
We were so impressed and so happy when we saw them.
The ceiling was set pretty low before that, so
for multiple reasons.
Right.
But it was phenomenal, and we're so excited to have you, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of y'all's big day, and I do want to throw another name out there too. If you want more people, I think if you just talk to Jeff at Auburn, you should also talk to Shauna, who's their lead athletic photographer too. I think I can connect you to as well. She does a lot of these things too. She did it with me back when I had mine.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that. I appreciate it, man.